Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Cait podcast. It is Cait, your host, and I'm so glad that you are here today. I'm really excited about today's episode because it is 3 things that I've personally been working on, 3 perspective shifts that I have had recently that I'm going to continue to carry on with me in 2023 as I look forward to a new year, new goals, new ambitions, and steering my ship in the direction that I want it to go. And oftentimes, when we look to a new year and we set those New Year goals and we set those New Year resolutions, a lot of the time it's punitive, right? We think about the things we're not going to do anymore or the things that we want to lose. For example, we always hear about, I want to lose 5 pounds this year. I want to lose the weight finally this year. We hear a lot of goals centered around, the new year, new me, new body. And a lot of the time that's punitive. I'm going to eat less. I'm going to diet. I'm going to take away sweets. I'm going to take away sugar. I'm going to take away alcohol or whatever it is. And we get into this punitive mindset, and all that does is lead to lack. And when we're focusing from lack, we're operating from fear, and we're not operating from this abundant growth mindset, which ultimately is what we do need to accomplish and reach our goals in the next year and beyond that, just in life. And so I want us to think about this shift today because it's 3 things that I've shifted in my mindset recently that have been very helpful for me, because I can default to that punitive mindset of, well, what am I going to do less of? And kind of starting to operate from that fear, that lack, and that just doesn't serve me, because that's not a place where I'm going to receive more if I'm perceiving what I have currently is not enough. So these 3 perspective shifts have helped me, and I think that they're going to help you as we embark on 2023 and all of the goodness to lie ahead. And before we dive into this, I just really want you to remember this, that what happened in 2022, what's happened in your past, the things that you accomplished, that's so amazing. And I'm super proud of you. And I'm so glad that they happened. And the things that you missed, the goals that didn't happen, the things that you thought you would do and didn't, it's over, right? And we can't lament too much over the past. We need to take meaning from our past. We need to look at the wins. We need to look at the losses, the lessons, the triumphs, all the things, and just realize that they are what they are. And it's time to move forward, because surely at the end of the day, if we live in the past, we're going to be constantly feeling depressed because the past is over. Like today is the only day we're going to have today. So we can't live in the past because we're going to feel too depressed about the fact that things are over. And if we're constantly focused on the future and what might be and what could be and what's going to happen, well, you're going to have a perpetual state of anxiety because you can't control necessarily what's going to happen tomorrow. And so when we talk about these shifts today, I want you to also think about being present. What can I do today? What can I do in this hour? What can I do in this minute to hopefully turn the needle towards where I want to go in the future, when ultimately at the end of the day, all we have is the present moment. And so when you think about 2022 and you're thinking ahead to 2023, I think it's so important that you take the lessons from the year before, assess them, look at them, think about, the gifts and the lessons that they gave you, and then put those into action today. Do what you can today. And then tomorrow will be decided by the actions and the efforts and the belief patterns that you put into today. So it's over. It's done. Take a breath and let's positively move forward into the future. So I want to start off by telling you a story that I heard on a podcast earlier this week, and I thought it was so fantastic. If you ever listen to the podcast that Lori Harder puts out, it's called Earn Your Happy, and she is phenomenal. She is one of my all-time favorite podcasters, and she recently had Brendon Burchard on, who's one of my top personal development gurus. I love learning from Brendon Burchard, and he told a story that I thought would be really appropriate to retell here. It is Brendon's story, but I think that it can apply as we're thinking about the next year and our goals. He told the story about when he was in college and he had a speech class. I think we all had that. I remember having a speech class in college too. And he talked about in this speech class that he took as a freshman or sophomore, whatever it was, how nervous he was to get up there and speak in front of the class. How his heart was racing, his armpits were sweating, he was stammering, he could barely get out his speech in front of everyone. And he was so nervous about going out there and quote unquote performing in front of these people. And as he sat in the audience, he saw other people in his speech class come up there and just crush it. They were confident, they were poised, they knew how to speak to everyone. They just seemed effortless in what it was that they were doing. And he said that he started to look at those people, and instead of thinking of what don't I have, he started to think about, well, what are they doing that I could start to implement in my own life, in my practice, so that I also can go up there and be as confident as these speakers are. So he went into his dorm room and he practiced. He practiced over and over again. And that's what people told him to do. So he got out a notebook, and first he said he wrote out his entire speech from start to finish, every single word, every single sentence, every single phrase. And he paced back and forth practicing this speech until he could get it down to a page of notes instead of several pages. And he practiced his speech and his timing just off this one page of notes. As he continued to practice, he got it down to a note card with a few words. And when he'd see the few words, he had practiced enough and emulated what these other people who were successful at giving these speeches were, until he was confident enough to get up there and give his speech with no notes at all, because he had embodied and practiced and observed what these other people were doing. He did what they told him to do, and then he got better at it. Fast forward 15 years later, and this young man who was incredibly nervous and sweating and scared to give these speeches in his sophomore year speech class is now one of the top personal development speakers in the entire United States. In fact, he shared on this podcast with Lori that in 2022, there's some special name for it. I don't remember what it was, but basically he was the keynote speaker, the headline, the main guy speaker in 72 of the biggest arenas in the United States. So within the United States, there's 72 main arenas where keynote speakers and, sports and arenas, all that kind of stuff. He was the keynote speaker in 72 of those locations. And that was 15 years after that initial speech class where he was shaking and nervous and felt like he could not do this. The reason I wanted to share this story with you today is because oftentimes when we're thinking about the next year and we're thinking about our goals, we're thinking about where it is that we want to head in the next year, we forget to look at the whole picture. We forget that this first year, maybe you have big goals and dreams and ambitions for 2023, but in the long term of our life, if we are lucky enough to get many, many years, a year, 365 days is a blip. If you're a parent, I want you to think about the day that you took your baby home to that first birthday party as they were smashing their cake. Day to day, you probably didn't see massive changes from your little infant to your newborn to your now 1-year-old. But when you look at that 1 year of growth from a newborn to that 1-year-old, it's massive changes. And that's the same thing that we want to look at when we set these long-term goals. What about from 1 year to 2 years, 2 years to 3 years? Our children are going to have these massive changes from these day-to-day incremental little tiny things that shift and change and grow. And it's the same for you. So I just think that that's such a great story to start off with, because sure, we're going to talk about 2023. We're going to set our goals for the next year, but I want you to look at 2023 is a blip in the long term of things. These goals that you set for yourself this year, they're the catalyst to where will you be 15 years from now, 10 years from now. And I just think that's really encouraging, because the goals that you missed in 2023, the things that didn't happen for you, okay, so they didn't happen this year, but perhaps they'll happen this year. And if they don't happen this year for you, but you continue to grow and learn and try to keep getting better, well, maybe there'll be yours the next year. But if you give up, if you stop, if you constantly just compare yourself to other people, or you wonder what you don't have, well, you're never going to get there. But adopting this long-term mindset, I think, is just so powerful for us, because it gives you that resiliency muscle to not stop when things get hard, because it's not if things will get hard, it's when. You're going to face the roadblocks. But when you have this long-term mindset and you realize, okay, this is a blip in the long term of things, you're going to eventually get there. So the shift number one, I basically just explained it. The first shift that that I have been implementing is looking at the true long term of my life goals, not just what can I do in this next year? And that has really helped me personally shift my mindset, because I'm really working through in therapy right now, shifting my all or nothing mindset, shifting my perfectionism. And in doing that, I've realized that I have to look at it long term, because you can grow so much in a year, but it doesn't mean that every single thing that I want and I'm working for is going to necessarily happen in this year. And when you string all these years together of you actively working towards the goals that you ultimately want, you can just appreciate the whole journey so much better. I think of myself right now, truly it's been 7 years of me really actively working to change my life. Once I started my career as a coach, in the beginning, it was a part-time. If I compare the Cait of 2023 to the Cait of 2015, she's not even the same person. But day to day, maybe those changes don't feel massive. But when I look at that perspective shift, that year by year, it's a stepping stone, man, that's encouraging, because it's just a better way to look at it. And truthfully, it's a more realistic way to look at this. Okay, second shift to have this year, something that I've actively been working on, is not comparing myself to other people. All right. And I've shared many a podcast on this before. I've come a long way in this area, but I want to dig into it because I see it so much with the women that I mentor in my coaching business, is that comparison game and social media and looking at what other people have done and what you haven't done and measuring yourself up to somebody else. And I think that for myself personally, again, this is all coming from stuff I'm working through in therapy, coming from dealing with my birth trauma from Ellie, has really uncovered a lot of other shit, to be honest. But here's what I want you to do if you compare yourself to other people, or if when you miss a goal or someone is accomplishing something you want and you look at that person, you look at her and you say, well, what does she have that I don't? This shift is going to help you. So instead of looking at those people of what does she have and looking at yourself with a lack of, well, what don't I have? Why am I not good enough? Why will I never be good enough? Right? Because that's where my default goes. I'll be honest with you. I literally talked to my therapist about this yesterday. It's like when I miss a goal, or, when I use this in the context of Ellie's birth, when I think about how south that went and how, like I quote unquote failed and had this emergency C-section, I told my therapist, I'm like, a huge piece of it is I look at other women, I'm like, but why could you do it and I couldn't? And logically, that makes no sense, because we're two different women. We gave birth to two different babies. We're physiologically different. Our bodies are different. Our mindsets are different. The circumstances were different. Like everything is different. So comparing myself to somebody else's birth experience in this example is like comparing apples and oranges. They're two completely different fruit. It doesn't even really matter because they're so massively different. But why do we do this if we are looking to ourselves with other women who have similar goals than us? Maybe it's in your direct sales business. Maybe it's with your podcast. Maybe it's with trying to grow as a content creator on TikTok or Instagram. And instead of shifting, what does she have that I don't? What's inherently wrong with me and good with her? I want you to have this shift. The first shift is that when self-doubt shows up, get curious. Why do you feel that way? Why do you feel like you're lacking? Why do you feel like you're not enough? And kind of get curious. And I find that curiosity helps me not feel shame, because if we go into a shame spiral, if you listen to Brene Brown, she talks about shame all the time. Shame is not a way for us to progress. But if we get curious, we can find answers. We can seek to understand. So if you have that self-doubt creep up and you're comparing yourself to somebody else, wondering why she can and you can't, get curious as to why you feel that way. What I have found when I see other women who have success and I get curious, I can ask myself, okay, what are some skills that this woman possesses that maybe I don't have yet? And it's not a comparison in that way. Maybe she's really learned and she's really studied the TikTok algorithm and she's really pieced together, how that algorithm is going to work. Is that something that I can learn also? Probably. I could go follow people who teach me how to do that. Okay, awesome. I got curious. I didn't shame myself into wondering why she's quote unquote better and I'm not, but now I can seek to understand some skill sets that she has that maybe I can also possess. And here's the cool thing about it. You listening to this are your unique own individual. You possess certain qualities, traits, characteristics that other people are like, damn, I wish I knew how Samantha was so good at this. I wish I knew why Brittany was so good at that. Guess what? You have a skill set that you could go teach and bless and help other people learn. And how cool is that? And when you shift that perspective, you realize that there isn't comparison because we're so different. And if somebody has accomplished something that you want to do, it's just a matter of yet. It's just a matter of, can you learn some of the gifts and the skill sets that she has? And can you share your gifts and your skill sets with other people so that we can help each other rise to the occasion? Because at the end of the day, all tides rise ships. A win for somebody else is an eventual win for you. And if she did it, it's proof that you can too. You don't necessarily lack something that she has and you'll never possess, but there could be skills, there could be things that you learn along the way and you share with each other. And just remember this, when it comes to this shift, you do not have to be perfect. You do not have to be perfect. You don't have to know everything. The best way to learn something is to jump in, learn it, and course correct along the way. And the more that you can tailor yourself to recovering faster and learning faster from quote unquote perceived failures, the quicker you stand up, the quicker you move forward, and then the faster that you're going to make that progress that you ultimately want to make. The third shift that I think is so powerful that I've currently been working on and will help you this year is to do something radically different. All right. So let's say you sat down and you got out your little notebook and you got out your little pen and you were so excited. You're going to write all your goals and you're going to make your vision board and like, this is going to be my year. And then all of a sudden you're like, this is the same shit I've done for 3 years in a row and nothing is different. My income hasn't changed. I'm still fighting to lose these last 5 pounds. My husband and I are still fighting over the same dumb shit. You got to look at that and say, is it working? Do I really need to do the same thing I've done every single year to move the needle forward? And this is where I'm giving you permission. You don't need my permission, but if you need my permission, you can have it. Color the frick outside of the lines. Do something radically different. Set those goals and look at those goals, but can you go about reaching them in a new way? That maybe for some of you means, okay, I need to work harder. Maybe you kind of look and you're like, you know what? I've been pretty lax with my nutrition. No wonder I still have these, 5 pounds I really want to lose because I'm always eating the scraps of my daughter's, macaroni and cheese and her chicken nuggets. And, that's probably adding up. Maybe I'll just shift. Maybe it's radically different for you not to do those little munchies and you eliminate that and bam, there goes the 5 pounds. Maybe that's radically different for you. For some of you, it might be something like therapy. Right now, I'm going to a shit ton of therapy and it's a great thing. I've done it in the past, but in uncovering Ellie's birth and kind of working through her trauma, it's really lifted the lid up for me of this area of perfectionism that I personally need to work on. And this is radically different for me to go to weekly, hour-long therapy and dig into this. Like, I've never done that. I've never consistently seen a therapist. I've seen therapists here and there, whatever, but like to really dig in with it and dig in with EMDR therapy and all that kind of stuff, which side note, if you want me to dive into some of this EMDR stuff, I can make a separate podcast on it. Just leave me a review because it is fucking fascinating. But anyway, we'll get back to that. But do something radically different. This is radically different for me and it is helping me so much. And there are some things that I'm personally working through in therapy right now that like I feel in my soul that when I work through this, my life will literally make quantum leaps and completely change for the better because it's something that's been holding me back for years. So maybe there's something inside of you that has been holding you back for years. It's the thing that keeps you up at night. It's the little whisper in your head that shows up at 2 a.m. when you can't sleep. Maybe for you, it's therapy. Maybe that's radically different for you to finally have a conversation about it. Go do it. Maybe it's a schedule shift. Maybe it is like completely turning up on your head the way that you go about your day. Maybe you've tried to be the 4 a.m. wake up person, morning workout, and it just doesn't work for you. Just because you see other people doing it, and just because someone like me loves a morning routine, maybe it doesn't work for you. Maybe it's getting more sleep. Maybe it's doing a lunch workout so you fully get in 8 hours of sleep and your cortisol levels can actually go down and you actually feel energetic. Like maybe, maybe it's a massive schedule shift. Maybe it's having more fun. Do you ever let yourself just play? When you're with your kid, do you actually play with them? Or do you try to do the dishwasher and try to mindlessly scroll and, try to just sit on the couch? I mean, we all have those days, but maybe get down and actually dance with your 1-year-old. Maybe actually get down and decide to have fun, imaginative play with your 5-year-old. Maybe you go down the slide with them instead of your husband doing it when you're at the indoor playground. I don't know what it is for you, but do something radically different that shakes up your norm. Because if nothing changes, nothing changes. And if you've been stagnant, if you've felt stuck, but you're going through the same motions day to day, girl, switch it up. Switch it up. I don't know why my mind just also went to like a dirty joke, like switch it up in the bedroom, do something crazy. But honestly, like do something different that gets you out of your comfort zone and sparks that inspiration to really move the needle forward. End of the day, end of this podcast, end of whatever. It comes down to the fact that you're wildly capable. You are. The things that you want, the things that I want in life, the things that we want in life, they can be ours. But life is always going to life. There's always going to be something that gets in your way. There's always going to be a roadblock. But I think that when you can have these 3 shifts in your perspective as you set goals, as you move forward, as you go forward in 2023, I just know that you can do it, but you have to know that you can do it. You have to be brave enough to step out, have some of these perspective shifts yourself, and then go back to the story I started off with this podcast. Think about Brendon Burchard. If Brendon Burchard can go from shy and shaky and timid and terrified to give a speech in front of 6, 7, 10 people in a room in his college class, to then being the absolute top keynote speaker in 72 arenas in 1 year, why can't you? It might take more than a year. It might take more than 2. But if you give up, if you stop, if you don't do the scary things, you're never going to know who you could be. And this year can be the stepping stone that you need to ultimately end up exactly where it is that you deserve to be. Because sister, we only get one life. We only get one chance, and we're not promised tomorrow. So let's live every single day, making it the best that we can, moving forward to ultimately end up with this, life that we really want. And you can appreciate the beauty in the present moment on the way to getting there, because every single moment is important. So with that wraps up today's episode. I want to say thank you for being here. I'm really excited about 2023. We have so much good content coming your way on the Cait podcast. I truly appreciate you being here. And if you love today's episode, please just give it a screenshot, tag me on Instagram. I'd love to shout you out. And don't forget to leave a review over on the Cait podcast, wherever you listen to them. Leave a 5-star written review. Let me know what you want to hear this year. If you leave that in the reviews, I'll see it there. But I appreciate you so much. I hope you have the best day, and I'll see you next week on the Cait Take. Bye, friend.